Welcome to this week's episode of Insight. During this week's show, we're going to cover three topics. The first one's going to be the possibility of Armenia joining the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, and the Russian reaction to it. The second one's going to be sort of a deeper analysis of the current state of Russian-Armenian relations. And the last one's going to cover Aliyev's latest aggressions against Armenia in the Sunni region. Now let's go to topic number one, which is the issue of Armenia joining the ICC. The ICC actually stands for the International Criminal Court, which was set up to essentially become a new vehicle for indicting and judging state criminal actors. For the most part, its nickname has been the African Court because the only places that's really been active is in indicting and prosecuting African leaders and warlords. Now, why would Armenia want to join the ICC? And because it would allow us to actually, in certain cases, open up indictments or bring up cases against the Aliyev regime and make them responsible for their war crimes. In fact, holding Aliyev personally responsible for those war crimes. However, the reaction from the Russian side to this has been very strong. In fact, the Russian Foreign Ministry actually leaked something to the press saying that there will be severe consequences for Armenia joining the ICC. And this reaction is related to the fact that recently the ICC indicted Vladimir Putin for alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Now let's talk about the politics of the Putin indictment. This obviously has nothing to do with actually ever bringing Vladimir Putin to court. This actually has to do with enabling the destruction of any peace process in Ukraine right now. And what we see is different moves by different countries, whether it's China having its own plan or recently Brazil. And the way to make sure that none of these go anywhere is to essentially try to criminalize one of the leaders, in this case Vladimir Putin, to end any conversations about a peace agreement, which many people, the primary countries in the West, are not interested in. While all of this was going on, one of the dimmer bulbs in our parliament, and that's quite an accomplishment, made international news by saying if Armenia joins the ICC, that would mean that we would need to arrest Vladimir Putin when he comes to Armenia. This was quickly refuted by the Speaker of the Armenian Parliament, Alan Simonyan, who said this is absurd and there's never going to be an arrest of Vladimir Putin. The reality is, as I had stated earlier, no one is ever going to be arresting Vladimir Putin. That simply doesn't happen to the leaders of important countries. That's just political reality. I suspect he could be walking down the street in Washington, D.C., and no one's going to arrest him because doing so would mean there's a nuclear weapon that's going to land in your capital. I think it's very clear that this decision is going to be delayed, or they're going to be mulling it over and holding it for another date. And that's been the continued response from the government. And we will be monitoring this issue as it moves forward. Now we're going to move on to the second topic of the week, which is sort of a deeper study of the crisis in Armenian and Russian relations. And specifically, let's talk about the phrase severe consequences that was leaked by the Russian Foreign Ministry. This back and forth about the ICC, even the possibility of Armenia joining the ICC, is really telling you about where the relations with these two countries are. The reality is, and some of this is seen, and much of it isn't seen, is that Armenian-Russian relations at this moment are actually a lot worse than they appear, or leaders would admit. And in fact, Armenian-Western relations are much better, or actually, in this case, much deeper than anyone would care to admit. For all practical purposes, Armenia is joining the West, and even our CSTO membership right now is really nothing more than a fig leaf of someone's imagination. We really aren't a member of that organization anymore, which is CSTO being the Russian-led defense organization. The reality is that the architects of Armenia's move to the West, which really accelerated after the September 22 invasion of Armenia by the Aliyev regime, are actually Aliyev and Vladimir Putin. And they're essentially their strategic alliance, in many ways against us, leave us with no choice. However, this transition needs to be done in a way that causes the least amount of frictions and the least amount of problems for the country. And we should not become a tool for other people's purposes in poking the bear when it doesn't serve our interests. Now, when you're really studying or trying to understand what is referred to as severe consequences, let's go over them. Now, none of these things are entirely one-sided, and none of them are without solutions. The number one and the biggest issue is obviously the issue of Artsakh, as unreliable and as problematic the Russian presence is in Artsakh, and how dramatically they have failed us and the people of Artsakh. The fact is that at this current moment, in this current juncture, it's better for them to be there and not to be there. The second one is obviously our energy needs. 70% of our gas imports come from Russia. Yes, there are alternatives, Iran and other places, but those are they're neither going to be cheap or they're going to be easy, because one of the things is what we pay for our gas is far less than other countries pay. Third is our agricultural exports. The primary market is to Russia, and this is where a lot of rural and working class Armenians make their living, by exporting these products to Russia. And lastly, this is becoming less relevant over time because there's we're less and less dependent on money coming in from people working in Russia. There are hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million Armenians working or living in Russia. Now, some of them are citizens, but what we saw in 2008, that the Russian government, after the war in Georgia, deported a lot of Georgians to cause havoc and destruction within that country. Bottom line is, we need to wean ourselves off of this Russian relationship. It needs to be lessened, and other relationships need to be strengthened. However, we cannot wish our neighborhood away, whether we like to or not. Even a weaker Russia, a weakened Russia, is going to be an important regional player, whether we want to or not. And it is best for us, even if we don't have friendly relations, is not to have hostile relationships with them. The kind of things that we should be looking at is not to become a battleground between East and West, and actually to become a bridge. And frankly, last year, I'll give you a perfect example of that, when the head of the CIA and the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service met in Armenia to discuss certain topics because they saw it as a neutral place that both sides can meet. And even last year, Lynn Tracy, who was the American ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Armenia and the current ambassador to Russia, this is after the start of the Ukraine war, said that the United States is willing to work with Russia on the issue of Artsakh, which is a humongous revelation, given the fact that their two countries are essentially at war and not willing to work with each other on anything else. Now, how realistic this is, or if she was just saying that and not being honest about it, we don't know. But the fact is, we need to try, and the more that we try this, the more we're outlining and alienating the regime in Baku out of this Artsakh peace process. Let's learn something from our Ukrainian friends. Yes, the West can love you, but in some cases they can love you to death, as what's going on in Ukraine. No one can argue or tell us that Russia is a good friend. Russia is not a good friend. Russia most certainly green-lighted the 2022 invasion of Armenia, and they're very likely green-lighted the 2020 war against Artsakh. However, the one thing that we do know is that as poor of a friend they are, they're actually far worse enemies. Now let's move on to our third topic of the week, which is Aliyev's recent aggression by the village of Ter in the Syunik region of Armenia. This is needs a bit of a background. It's a rather confusing situation because as the road blockade to Artsakh is happening, there was a bypass road that's been completed, which is the new road that's leading to Stepanakert. Again, it's the one that's being blocked. This juncture was under control of Russian peacekeepers, and they vacated it at the end of March. And April 1st, it's both sides, the Armenian side and the Aliyev side, that need to hold the border. So what happens is on April 1st, Aliyev's troops show up, and not only do they go to the border, they cross the border by something like 100 or 300 meters, depending on who you believe and at what location. And they start entrenching themselves there. This is obviously in violation of international law. And this has tremendous impact on the local village because it's really not an issue of 100 and 300 meters, because once you establish themselves and you can put what are the communal lands of the village where people pasture or raise wheat within the gun range of Aliyev's gunmen, those will become an inoperable resources for the local village. So actually the impact is it's quite debilitating. What the government in Yerevan said is that there are negotiations that have been started with the Aliyev regime to lessen the impact of this, or for them to move back, and they're claiming that the situation is improved, when in fact there has been no improvement. In fact, the Aliyev regime is actually entrenching themselves 100, 300 meters on the Armenian side, and there's been no indication that they're about to leave. How can we analyze this? Well, in reality, this cannot be described as anything but mass incompetence. Anyone who's been watching the behavior of the Aliyev regime could have predicted this. We should have had people essentially the morning of April 1st ready to go to the border and to hold what is the international border between Armenia and Aliyev state. You know, there's a few thousand people that work in that Ministry of Defense building on top of that hill in Yerevan. God knows what they do, but apparently not a single one of them thought about this contingency and what needs to be done about it. The only question right now is who's being held responsible and who's being fired. So far, the answer is that no one's being fired and no one's being held responsible. The reality is that this event in this one village is actually quite symbolic of our dealings with our enemies and of the peace agenda that the Prime Minister likes to talk about. We all want peace and we support all efforts to achieve it. Any sane person wants peace over war. The problem is that, and the reality is that there's actually no peace partner. So not having a peace partner, we really don't have a peace agenda, but a continued humiliation agenda. The peace agenda and the language that gets praised in Washington and Brussels and other places is interpreted by the very primitive regime in Baku as an appetite for endless humiliation. We need to understand their mentality. They will only attack the weak, and they will continue to do so until we change that calculation. In conclusion, our enemy's aggressions will not sign by the signing of any peace treaty. You know, this week, the Armenian Foreign Minister, Arat Mirzoyan, said that Azerbaijan has actually violated every single point of the ceasefire agreement from November of 2020. So what will make anyone believe that whatever they sign today or over the next 6 months or a year actually means anything? It probably doesn't mean anything. Their aggressions will end the moment that they fear that every aggression will be responded to and that war is a bigger threat to regime's survival than peace. Because at the end of the day, what the regime is about is staying in power for as long as possible, for them to rape and steal from their countrymen. The moment we change that calculation, we can change their behavior. So, Mr. Prime Minister, your peace agenda, if you're realistic about it, can only flow out of the barrel of a gun. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode of Insights.
Don't look so puked out. Better luck next time, fool.
Listen, punk. To me, you're nothing but dog shit, you understand? And a lot of things can happen to dog shit. It can be scraped up with a shovel off the ground. It can dry up and blow away in the wind, or it can be stepped on and squashed. So take my advice, be careful where the dog shits you.